Rochester pulls family in from the all over the country for the one single region. You have got the incredible affordability and highly rated schools in the suburb and the quality of the life that's hard to beat for the price. But after living here for 13 years and helping hundreds of families relocate to the Rochester area, I have seen some of the realities that completely blindsided to the newcomers. And today I will break down the 7 most frustrating things about the living in Rochester. Some of this won't bother you at all, but other parts could be totally deal-breaking if you don't understand them upfront. And believe me, one of the biggest surprise came down to how different lives feels depending on where you land. So that's where we really need to start. When you live in the city of Rochester proper, you're getting an urban experience. Think neighborhood like Park Avenue in the southwest with the walkable street and local restaurant coffee serve an actual community energy. In this neighborhood, you can get by one car or even go car lead. But the suburbs are totally different story. Rochester metros are made up of a dozen of the decent community. You have got the lakefront towns like Webster and Irondequoit, and the southern tier suburbs like Pittsburgh, Victor, and western suburb like Greece and Gates that can feel like semi-ruler in pieces. And here's the kicker, many of those suburbs feels like a true small town with their own identities, local festivals and quite straight, but you are still within the reasonable commuting distance from the Rochester employment centers. Let me show you what I mean. The Monroe County alone is about the population size of 750,000 people. Think about that for a second. That's a 750,000 people in just the one county. Brighton has a 36,000 people and the Pittsburgh have around 30,000, where Webster consists of around 45,000. There isn't just the bedroom community. They have a functioning town with their own government, school district, and the community infrastructure. And even when you feels like the independent towns, those suburbs is still revolve around the Rochester job market and the regional identity. The people commute to the strong hospital and the University of Rochester, RIT, or even a downtown offices, then come home to the place where the neighborhood actually know each other by their name. So the choice is really comes down to what you value the most. And if you want the urban walkability, nightlife, and the city energy, Rochester suburb neighborhood like Park Avenue delivers. But if you prioritize the top-rated school district, more space, and the community feels, the suburbs are where the most family end up. And understand this split will help you narrow your search from the dozens of the area to maybe 5 or 6 that actually fits your lifestyle. But the coming up next is where you're going to see how the weather impacts everyone here, no matter where you live, and this is the biggest one that catches people off guard. Alright, so here's the thing, Rochester weather is genuinely challenging and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're dealing with the lake effect snow, the brutal winter, the gray skies that last for months, and temperature swings that can feel extreme. Rochester averages around 100 inches of snow every year, and that's over 8 feet of the snow annually. And it is not just the amount, it is the lake effect patterns that creates the completely unpredictable conditions. You can wake up to the sunshine in the Brighton and drive 15 minutes to the Greece where a foot of snow is falling at the 2 inches per hour. That is not an exaggeration. That's the lake effect. It's snow creating a localized bands of heavy precipitation. And this is what catches most people off guard. Rochester only see around 29% of possible sunshine during the winter months. This is less than a saddle and one of the famous city for being gray. We are talking about the November through March, where overcast skies and clouds from the Lake Ontario dominate. Summers feels like the opportunity, extreme hot, humid, and the stormy. You might get temperatures in the 90s with the humidity that feels like even hotter. And in spring and falls, they are beautiful but short. You might get perfect 2 weeks of 70-degree weathers in May, and then suddenly you'll go back down to 50-degree and a rain. You may hit October enjoying the false color for the few days and then make up to freezing morning back again. Rochester residents learn to jump on nice weather fast. When sun come out, parks will fill up, and there is the most fantastic energy compared to the city with the mid-climate year around. You also need a totally different wearable. Heavy winter coats, boots, gloves, hat, and quality winter gears are non-negotiable here. A good winter coat will cost you around $200 to $400. Snow tires and all-wheel drives are a strong recommendation. You will need an ice scraper, snow shovels, and probably a snow blowers if you have a long driveway. But once you adjust this, there is something special about the experiencing for true season. The first warm spring day when everyone floods the island park or heads toward the lakefront feels like the entire city wakes up at the same time. The weather shapes how people live here in ways that surprise newcomers. And honestly, the extreme climate creates the sheer experience that bonds the Rochester resident together. But before we move, I am Kadariya, your Rochester real estate agent, helping people like you to move around in Rochester area. If you are trying to figure out which area actually fits your budget and your lifestyle, I want to be your real estate resources. Whether you're moving next month or next year, just reach out. You can find my all the information down in a description below. And if you are first time here, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you get all the information about Rochester. Now let's talk about the money, because the cost of living here is way more complex than most of the people expected. This is the big one that catches almost every newcomers off guard. And I'm going to be very honest with you. Property tax here is the biggest financial surprise people faces when moving to Rochester, New York. And especially if you're relocating from another state. Rochester medium home price is around $215,000, which sounds incredible affordable compared to the most market. But buyers often focus on the purchase price and forgot to calculate their property taxes will add up to your monthly payment, and that mistake can hurt. Let me show you how different this can be depending on the which suburb you choose, because property taxes vary dramatically across the Rochester area. According to the Monroe County Property Record, homeowners experience varying property taxes bills, with the 25th percentile at approximately around $2,361 and the 75th percentile around $7,307. That's massive range. We are talking about the difference nearly of $5,000 per year depending on where you buy. And here is where it gets really complex. The same property that costs you $300,000 can have property tax bills range from $6,000 to $12,000 annually, depending on which school district and municipalities and the town you are in. Brighton might be a $7,000 to $8,000 per year. Pittsburgh might be $8,000 to $10,000 a year, and Webster might be $6,000 to $7,000, and Greece might be $5,000 to $6,000. Those differences add up fast. If you are comparing $300,000 house in a Brighton with a $750,000 tax annual versus a $300,000 house in a Greece with the $5,500 in taxes, that's $2,000 per year different, or about $167 more per month in a Brighton. Over the 30 years of mortgage, that's $60,000 in additional taxes from the one place to the another place for the same home value. And here is what makes this even more frustrating. Property taxes can increase. Monroe County reassesses property tax on the rolling basis, and if you are buying during a market upswing, your assessment might jump in year 2 or 3. I have seen buyers whose property tax increased by 25 to 30% in a single year of the ownership. So here's what you need to understand. Your real monthly housing cost isn't just the principal and the interest. You have to add up the property taxes, homeowner insurance, and sometimes HOA fees. That total number is what actually matters. Before you even start touring a home, let's talk to the lender. Make sure your budget is based on the total monthly payment, not just the purchase price, and ask specifically about the property tax rate in the suburb you are considering. And now I know what you're probably thinking, why property taxes are so high. Those taxes fund top-rated schools and the local services. Brighton Central School District, Pittsburgh Central School District, Penfield Central School District. They consider rank in a top 5% New York State schools. That's why families pay the premium. You are not just buying a home, you are buying access to some of the best public school in New York State. But you need to know this upfront, because I have seen the buyers pre-approve based on the purchase price, find the home they love, make an offer, then they see the full monthly payment with the property taxes included, and suddenly the number doesn't make sense. And don't let that be you. Here is something that frustrates people coming from the cities with the robust transportation. Rochester transportation system is extremely limited, and you almost certainly need a car. Rochester have a bus system operated by the RTS, but the covers and the frequency just doesn't compare to the major metros, and routed can be infrequent, especially on the weekend. Many suburbs area have a minimal or no bus services. There is no subway, no light rail, no competitive rapidly transportation system. In the neighborhood like Park Avenue or a Southways, you might be able to get around by one car or even no car. If you work from home or have a flexible transportation, walkable score in those areas reach to 70s and 80s. You can walk to the coffee shop or restaurants and some services. But if you move to the suburb, which is where most family ended up for the schools, a car isn't an option and it is required. And those school rating is based on nice.com. In fact, most of the suburban homes in Rochester ended up owning at least a 2-car because both parents need the transportation. Kids need to get to the activities and everything required driving. Webster, you're driving. Pittsburgh, you're driving. Greece, you are definitely driving. Even in Brighton, which is very close to the city, it still requires a car for the most daily activities. And there is no equivalent to the Chicago metro system or the New York City commuter rail. No express train connecting suburbs to the downtown in 30 to 45 minutes. Your commute is what it is. You are sitting in a car and dealing with the traffics, paying for the gas, maintenance, insurance on top of the multiple vehicles. And insurance are not really cheap in Rochester in entirety for the New York State. And that is just the reality of the Rochester, and the city was built around the Erie Canal and later around the automobile. Public transportation was never prioritized the way it was in the older coastal cities like in New York City or others bigger cities. For the people relocating from places like New York, Boston, even Chicago, where you can genuinely live without a car, this adjustment can be frustrating. And the good news is the commutes are generally short. Average commute time in Rochester is around 20 to 25 minutes, which is far less than the major metros. The traffic exists, but it is nothing compared to the bigger cities. But if you are driving, plan it and budget for it and the factors in the cost of owning and maintaining the vehicle. Let me talk about something that surprised people about the downtown Rochester. Part of it can be feels like significantly quiet, especially in the evening and the weekends. Downtown Rochester is struggling with the office vacancy and the residential density for years. While there are efforts to revitalize the area with the projects like a Sibley building conversion and a new apartment, the reality is that the downtown doesn't have a 24/7 energy you might expect. During the business hours, Monday to Friday, downtown is active with the workers, students, and nearby schools and hospital employees. But after the 5 or 6 p.m., especially the midweeks, the largest section of the downtown can feel desert. Weekend can be even quieter unless there is a specific events happening. This catches people off guard who are used to be vibrant downtown area in the other cities, like bigger cities. But Rochester energy is much more disturbing across the neighborhood rather than the concentrated downtown. The real vibrancy in Rochester happens in a place like a Park Avenue with the restaurants and the nightlife, the Southways with the breweries and the independent shop, the East End near the East Main Theater, and the Charlotte Beach in the summer, village downtown in the suburbs like Pittsburgh and a Fairport. But if you are expecting to bustling downtown core with the consistent activities, Rochester might disappoint you. The city is working on this from years and decades, but the innovation, residential conversion, new restaurants, and the entertainment venues. Downtown is evolving, but in a slow process. And right now, the reality is that the downtown Rochester functions more like 9-to-5 business district than 24/7 urban center. When you step outside of the downtown into a Rochester neighborhood, the energy feels completely different. And this is where the Rochesterian really shine. Understanding this early shapes your expectation and helps you to focus on the part of the Rochester that actually delivers the lifestyle you're looking for. Here is some subtle, but the real making friends in Rochester can be harder than you expected, especially if you're moving here without the existing connection. Welcome to what I call the Rochester social paradise. People here are genuinely friendly and welcoming on the surface, but breaking into that a special social circle can take time. And there is the pattern that I see almost every client who relocate here from the out of state. It is easy to have a friendly conversation with the neighbors and the people at the coffee shop, the parents at the playground, and a surface level friendliness is everywhere. But building the deeper friendship, finding your tribe, and getting into a social groups takes much effort and time. And this is a specific reason for this is many Rochester residents grow up here and they're pretty local here or have lived here for a decade. They went to a same high school, which is the huge identity maker in Rochester, and people will ask, where did you go to a school, which is mean your high school? And their friend groups are established from the college, from the kids sports, from work connection built over the year. They are not unfriendly to newcomers, but they're also not actively looking for expand their social circle because they already have them. This can be your first year in the Rochester feels lonelier than you expected. Even everyone seems very nice. Now here's the good news. Once you do break through, the Rochester people are loyal, but even to put into effort to find your entire point. They will include you in a family event. They will help you to move if you ever decide to move and buy a house here. They will recommend for you for the job. So it's going to be easy for you to get to a job where people are already doing and getting best payout. But you have to put into the effort to find your entry point. Joining community groups, get involved in a kids activities if you have a child, and volunteer, attend the neighborhood events, join fitness classes or the local leagues. The Rochester transplant community exists and is genuinely very welcoming to the follow newcomers. It is just takes intentional effort rather than friendship forming organically like they might in the same other city. It just takes an intentional effort rather than just a friendship forming organically like they might in the other cities. Here is something that frustrates younger professionals especially. Rochester have historically struggled to retaining younger talents, and there is a perception that everyone's leave after the college. RIT and University of Rochester produce thousands of graduates every single year with the degree in engineering, technology, businesses, and healthcare. And while many of do stay, there are definitely been a patterns of the graduates leaving the Rochester for the bigger cities with more productive opportunity. You have here the people say things like, I grew up here, but I cannot wait to leave. Rochester is great for the rising family, but boring for the young people. And look, there is some truth to this. Rochester doesn't have the nightlife of the New York City. The tech scenes of the San Francisco or the career ladder opportunity of the Boston. So for ambitious young professionals, especially in certain industries, Rochester feel limiting. But there is a challenge, and this is very important. Of the 40 million NY's Smart Eye Conductor Tech Hub funding is bringing serious tech and semiconductor industries to the Rochester. Companies are expanding and startups are forming. The job market for the engineers and tech professionals and researchers is actually quite strong here. Rochester tech sector is projected to be growing 12.6% throughout the 2030 with over 33,000 tech new job at the average salary of $95,490. This is the real opportunity. The cost of living advantage means a young professional can easily save money, buy a house, start a business at the age where when their peers in expensive city are still struggling with the roommates. The culture scene is important. Better restaurants, the breweries, the event festival. It is not New York or the Chicago, but it is significantly better than it was even 10 years ago. And that perception can be frustrating if you are a young professional trying to build a career and a life here. The opportunity exists in Rochester. You just have to be intentional about finding it and creating the life you want rather than expecting it to be handed to you. So those are the 7 most frustrating things about living in Rochester. The city versus suburb divides. You need to know which world you are choosing. The weather is extreme, the lake effect is snow, the gray winter and extreme temperature swings. The property tax shocked people. Same house, same value, widely different tax bills. The transit reality, you need a car and probably 2 for the couples. And downtown emptiness, limited 24/7 energy in the urban core. The social scene challenge, friendly but established circle. The brain drain perception, young professional field limited. Understanding those realities up front is what separates people who thrive here in Rochester from who regrets after moving here in just a 6 months. Rochester deliver incredible value, affordable housing, great schools, genuine quality life, but only you know exactly what you are signing up for. If you are thinking of making a move and want help figuring out which Rochester suburb would be a best for your situation, reach out to me. You can find all of my contact information below in the description. I have helped hundreds of family navigating exact those challenges, and I'll be honored to help you to make the right decision for your situation. But if you're interested in the positive side, and there is a lot of positive things about the Rochester, and I put together and I clicked the video right here where I break down everything I love about living in Rochester, and it is the balanced perspective you need. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.